I have a problem. I have a Steam library filled with hundreds of games. Hundreds of games that I have never played. I also love achievements and 100%ing the games that I do play. Instead of being a regular human and simply playing a game for the joy of playing a game and putting it down once I'm satisfied, I have chosen the following method to slowly progress through my library. I have entered every game I own onto this randomizer. Whatever the wheel lands on, I will play until I pop at least one achievement. After that, I'll decide if I want to continue with the game or not. Once a game has been 100%ed, it will be removed from the wheel. If I get bored of a game, I add an additional weight to the game, increasing my chances of playing it again, and then I move on. My goal? I want to get more out of my games library and end those nights of staring at my library thinking I have nothing to play. Welcome to one more achievement.
There is something fun about it.
No, I agree. It's like a random loot box, but
Yeah.
but it can be filled with horror. All right.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Let's do this. Ugh.
Mom.
Don't be Dark
Walking
Souls.
Dead.
Oh, that.
you're kidding me.
It could
man,
be
you
worse.
Need to take some games off this thing.
It could be Goat Simulator, so it could have been worse.
Upon seeing Untitled Goose Game on the wheel, I was immediately not too excited. Admittedly, the reason for that was because I thought it was going to be similar to Goat Simulator, which is a game I really do not want to play. I kind of expected it to just be random chaos with no real direction, and while there definitely is chaos in this game, it's actually way more structured than I expected. So I launched the game, got familiar with the controls, which are honestly incredibly basic. Left click moves, right click interacts with things, left shift lets you sprint, left control makes you duck, and then X lets you flap your wings dramatically at innocent civilians. And with those being basically the only controls in the game, it makes Untitled Goose Game sound very simple. But honestly, simple does not mean easy. The way the game works is that you enter a region, and then by pressing tab, you're given a checklist of objectives that you need to complete before you can move on. At first glance, some of these objectives sound ridiculously easy. For example, take the farmer's hat. Sounds simple enough, right? Just steal the hat. Except then you realize you can't actually reach the hat because the farmer is too tall. So now suddenly, you need to figure out how to make this man bend over. The method I ended up using was repeatedly stealing the flowers from his garden. Eventually, he bends down to replant them, and in that tiny, tiny window of opportunity, you can sprint in, steal his hat, and run off. And that was the moment where the game kinda clicked for me, because Untitled Goose Game isn't really a chaos simulator. It's more like a puzzle game disguised as a meme. Every objective turns into this little chain reaction where you need to annoy people in a very specific way until things line up perfectly for you. And honestly, some of these villagers have way more patience than I would have, because if a goose kept stealing my crap every 30 seconds, I'd absolutely lose my mind. One thing I really didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did was the sound design. The piano music dynamically reacts to what you're doing. So whenever you start causing problems, the music suddenly speeds up and becomes more dramatic. The game also absolutely commits to the idea that you are the worst creature imaginable. You're not saving the world, you're not helping anybody, your only purpose is to make everyone in this village absolutely hate you, and to make sure that every villager has a terrible day. And somehow, it's quite entertaining. I think the reason this game became so popular is because literally anybody can understand the joke immediately. Even if you've never played games before or you're newer to games, the concept of being an evil goose terrorizing a small town is kinda just funny. I also think this is exactly why I wanted to start this wheel series in the first place. Untitled Goose Game is not something I would ever naturally just pick to play. But after actually giving it a chance, I ended up enjoying it. To some degree. Would I personally 100% this game? Maybe eventually, but it's definitely not something that I can do in one sitting. The game is short, charming, surprisingly clever, and it doesn't necessarily overstay its welcome. I went from being disappointed to seeing this on the wheel to kind of understanding what gives its appeal. So because the wheel landed on this game, I played this game. However, I only achieved 5 out of the 25 achievements. I achieved the Garden, which was for completing the garden to-do list, Ghastly, which is for tripping a boy in the puddle, the High Street, which was for completing the High Street to-do list, the Back Gardens, which is for completing the Back Gardens to-do list, and finally the Pub, which was for completing the Pub to-do list. After this, I kind of ran into an issue of not knowing what to do and decided to call it there. You can play Untitled Goose Game in split screen, however I played the whole thing solo. There does seem to be achievements related to speedrunning all of the things which I did, which if I were to roll the game again in the future, I guess that's what I would be working on. And then all of the other little achievements attached to it seem to be little to-do things that you can. For example, the trip the boy in a puddle was something that I accidentally did, and that relates to an achievement. So I'd imagine a lot of these other achievements are similar to that, where it's just doing these extra little things just to really annoy these villagers as much as you can. So as I did not 100% Untitled Goose Game, and I instead just went for the few achievements and then got bored, I will not be removing Untitled Goose Game from the wheel, and I will instead be adding an additional weight to the game, which makes it more likely I will roll it again in the future. And so now, let's go ahead and roll for our next game.
Alright. I want Slime Rancher. That's what I want. What? No way!
You
What?
That
is
impossible.
absurd.
That is impossible.
That is absurd. I'm so happy with that.
What are the odds?
There's like 500 inputs on this.